like he says, I gotta do,
sneezing.
yes, I gotta,
Delayed
yeah, you
gratification.
gotta,
Yeah.
yes. Anyway, so,
You need a nub.
really, should I, actually, Joe's got a girlfriend. I was gonna say.
Or a pirate hook, that would work too.
There you go.
With
Yeah,
interchangeable
actually.
influence.
Now, I have to digress, and I really want to get back to Master Arcane, but did
No,
that,
that was really good.
did that turn you on?
No, it was interesting.
No, I'm getting back to that. But when I had Joe, who
No,
had
it
an,
did not. I was just
were you
in
getting,
awe.
because Sid was getting turned on.
I could tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, she wanted more and more.
Yeah.
I remember that episode like it was yesterday.
Right.
And that I will never forget the moment where the nub went in.
And both their faces lit up.
They did.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought she was faking it.
No.
But not the third or fourth time.
No.
No.
And anyway, so he's got a very beautiful girlfriend now. So he's doing very well. I'll tell Joe he's good.
Please do.
So you had girlfriends. You're experimenting. You're getting pretty deep at this.
Yeah, no, my first girlfriend was completely into it. We actually.
And how old were you?
I was 17.
Okay, and she was
20.
okay. It seems to be a pattern. All women seem to be, yeah.
Yeah, I was one of the lucky ones who got introduced by someone with a little bit of experience.
Right.
Now she had no experience in this though. It was purely fantasy for her.
Okay.
So we both. It was actually on my prom night.
Right.
And we got back to my parents' house, and she turned to me and said, "Do you have any fantasies?" And I thought to myself, "There's no way I'm telling you what's going through my head because I was still embarrassed about it."
Right.
And I didn't know how I could share it with an adult, right?
And anybody else would be like statutory rape.
I was like, oh my God, you read my mind.
Yeah.
And so she turned to me and she said, "Do you have any fantasies?" And I said, "Well, how'd you go first?" And she said, "I'd like to be tied up and treated roughly." And I was just that was it. That was the door flew open, and
yeah.
She and I were together for 2.5 years. We did a lot of bondage and a lot of role play.
Right.
And
so you're like, funny you should mention that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I got some old karate belts upstairs I can go get. And,
oh wow. Karate belts.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah, they work.
Yeah.
They
I got a lot of ties, so I think I've been used to ties.
Yeah, ties work beautifully. I had a slave in Australia who she actually under her bed she had a collection of about 100 men's ties.
Really?
And she never had a guy to use them on her. She fantasized about it forever, and then she met me and she's like, I have to show you this.
Right.
Please use these on me.
Now, did she have you put them on and then whip them
all
off?
at the same time?
Oh no, I'm not a tie wearing kind of person.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So how does this go from this amazing relationship?
Yes.
This older woman, say older, she's 20.
Yeah, right.
And you guys are experimenting together.
A lot, yeah.
Now, did you start going to lairs? And
No.
You just did it by yourself?
Yeah, back then I was in Northern California, so it wasn't really part. I didn't become part of the public community until I moved to Amsterdam in the 90s.
Oh.
And I went for about 2 years, lived in Amsterdam and London, kind of went back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And the scene over there in the 90s was insane.
Really?
Like, the clubs were amazing.
Tell me about this.
Latex fashion everywhere. Some of the BDs, I got really lucky in that in Amsterdam, I had met these two couples. They were good friends of mine. They were super hardcore into BDSM. They did crazy shit. That'd even be crazy by today's standards.
Such as?
Not crazy as in mentally unstable, but crazy as in pushing the limits of BDSM.
No, what is
hardcore edge play?
Edge play? Okay.
Yeah, hardcore edge play. Just breath control was light and easy for them. Okay, I'm sure that they did blood play and whatnot. But the point is, they had so much experience. And then there's another couple, they're hardcore master and slave, beautiful, beautiful couple.
Yeah.
And every time they started to play at a BDSM club, and all the clubs over there were kind of a combination of BDSM and fetish fashion and dance.
Right.
And no matter what was going on, when this couple, Debbie and Vigor were their names, when they started to play, the entire club stopped. If someone else was doing a scene, they would just take off the blindfolds and untie their partner and say, "You've got to watch." Everybody just stop what they're doing to watch every single time. And these guys would do an entire scene with nothing more than a set of leather restraints and a riding crop, and it was mesmerizing. Now these are my friends, so between them and another couple, I got to just pick their brains. And so at that time, I met a woman who became my first formal slave.
Right.
and she and I would play and experiment, and I got more and more into the S&M side of things as part of just bondage and role play. And every time we did something and we had questions, I go, well, is that how it's supposed to go? We could sit with these couples in Amsterdam
Right.
and debrief with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in that sense, I got super lucky, and they were my tutors, I guess you could say.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a common story. People in the scene, you got to have people that take you under their wing and show you how it's really done.
It really helps. Now nowadays, you know, we kind of live in what's called the post 50 Shades era, which, love it or hate the book, it's opened the conversation massively.
Right.
People have asked me, like, how do you, if you're into BDSM, but you're really shy and nervous about it, and you want to meet someone without going to BDSM club, how would you get the conversation started? Or what would you do if you are going on a date and you want to see if they have an inkling? And my honest recommendation is get a copy of 50 Shades of Grey. You don't have to read it, but leave it out where the person can see it.
Right.
And they're probably going to ask about it. And then you can gauge from their response, are they into it, are they not into it, and the conversation will go. I got a funny side story,
Please.
which is that, I mean, I do this for a living. This is my career.
Yeah.
So my mother used to never know what to tell her friends when they said, what does your son do for a living? And so,
Thank goodness for 50 Shades of Grey.
She would just change the subject. So no joke. She actually now says, when they say, so what does he do for a living? She says, you know the book 50 Shades of Grey? And they're like, yeah, of course. And she says, well, it's kind of like he does that, but in real life, and he teaches people how to do it properly and intelligently. And they're like, oh, that's great. So.
Your mom has some freaky friends.
No, that's the whole point, is her friends are really normal, conservative people, but 50 Shades of Grey has just thrown that door. So,
right, but they read that book and they masturbate.
Oh,
Yeah.
here's a fun one for you. According to the UNESCO heritage, UNESCO statistics
Right.
on literacy around the world, and adults over the age of 18, and the actual book sales of 50 Shades of Grey in all forms, including illegal downloads of the ebook, 1 out of every 37 adults over the age of 18 on Earth has obtained a copy of that book.
I'm sure.
I'm sure it's more than that. That's just what we know.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
just the people that will admit to it.
That's the number crunching.
Yeah.
And so the point is, we live in this era now where the conversation is so wide that people don't have to go through what I went through and be nervous about it. They can go get information so easily.
Well, everything's on the internet too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you can do
Like
it
before,
in
you
privacy.
were going into AOL chat rooms and like you had the modem.
Yeah. How
Yeah,
did you come out to
exactly.
your family, or was it not even an issue?
Nobody was surprised. I think it really, I had a slave, long-term slavery, living up in Northern California, and
Well, he had a woman collared, brought her home to mom. And
Yeah,
kinda,
right? I mean,
not-
that's on the leash,
not quite, but close, close. So my mother and her husband came up to one of the places I was living, and they converted one of the rooms into a playroom dungeon.
Right.
And of course, velvet walls and whipping posts and a suspension bar and a St. Andrew's cross.
Right.
And she walks in there and she says, so what are you doing here? And I said, yoga.
Yeah.
And I said, okay.
Right.
And she's like, well, it's very nicely decorated. And that was it. And so,
Yeah.
and then same thing, my dad came over another time, and same thing, he looked in the room, he's like, wow, you're really into this.
Yeah.
And then he looks over at I had a glass toy cabinet, and he looks at all the whips and floggers things, and he goes, you're really into this.
Yeah.
And then I turned to him and I said, hey, Dad, remember the time I was staying at your house and I found that receipt for the pleasure chest? What was that for? And he changed the subject.
I never have these conversations with my father.
No, God,
No.
no.
So-
Jesus.
Yeah, but this is that's crazy. Wow. I mean, how did you come out to your
I
parents?
haven't.
Oh, you haven't. Okay. Did they ever? So you were a professional submissive.
I know, right? I had a full-time job. I was
Right.
teaching dance, and I was doing that.
Yeah.
That was a interesting
So,
way in.
It's Kat is a ballerina.
Cool.
I'm not bullshitting. So you still teach dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But you're not a professional sub anymore.
No. That stopped relatively soon after it started, like 3 months in.
Right. But
'Cause-
why?
yeah.
Why?
So like, God.
It just fuck with your head, or?
Well, so like originally I had wanted to like experiment with my sexuality and whatnot, but in order for me to be able to feel comfortable and confident to do so, I had to have a trusting relationship. I didn't have that.